In the past few months, I've had some revelations when it comes to the mindset of just the normal person when it comes to investing. I've had some run-ins with some people around my neighborhood, some friends of mine, some extended family members, and it's really interesting to dive into the minds of why people do what they do. And I like to do that so that I'm not just a guy who says, here's what I believe, here's what you should do, you know, oh, Mr. Young Guy Know It All, right? I try to figure out what is the thing that's holding them back from, different asset classes or different theses of investments. And how can I then structure a conversation around that? And one of the big things that I've noticed, and this is, it's just a theory, it doesn't necessarily have to be true for everybody, but finance is difficult, macro is difficult, markets are difficult, and they are confusing. And it's a little bit, in my opinion, by design, so that, people who are out living lives, working jobs, putting money away for retirement, they don't want to think about it. And the financial world, the powers that be, don't want you to think about it. They say, you know, do your job, put your money over here, give it to Bob at Wells Fargo, give it to Jim at Fidelity, Rick at Vanguard. We'll take care of it for you for a very small fee. You don't have to think about it. We're the professionals here. And that's been so ingrained. And if you're not in this world, if you're not in the trading or investing world, you've almost been like, thank God. Like, I don't want to think about this stuff. I just want to know that I can go work my job, do my passion, do my thing, live with my family, and know that over time my wealth will theoretically grow as it has been for the past, 20, 30, 40 years. So I just find that interesting that they're allowing you to toss the responsibility off, your own financial responsibility that ultimately comes down to you. It's your hard earned economic value that you've worked for. You want to then dish it off to somebody who you barely know, or some system that you're unaware of how it works. And you want to trust that. You want to dish that financial responsibility off because you don't want to learn about it. You don't want the pressure of it. And ultimately, I think deep down, that if everything goes wrong, you have somebody to blame. And this is, I think, the key part of it all, is that you don't want to have to blame yourself for something going wrong. So you'd rather pay somebody else a significant amount of money over time to be able to say, hey man, like, that's your fault if everything were to go wrong. It's a mentality of just casting blame and not taking responsibility for the things that are under your control. And I find that to be fascinating and living in a lot of people when it comes to investing. So, like, the other day I was having a fire pit conversation, fireside chat with a buddy, and he's invested in bonds. And like, he's, constantly saying, like, yeah, I'm just very safe, we're just very safe, I'm in bonds, we're making 4% or whatever. And I just start to kind of ask questions as to, like, oh well, you know do you do you know if 4% is good? What are you comparing that to? What else do you own? Like, do you understand inflation and debasement, and maybe how those two things might be different? Getting into how they think, how they, react to things like that. And of course, that there was a long conversation as to what I thought, maybe would be important to think about. The fact that you're signing up for essentially losing money to feel that safety, to not have to feel the responsibility of taking risk and having volatility introduced to your life. You are signing up with this bond yielding you 4% to lose money over time. You're agreeing to that. You are agreeing to lose money. If you can kind of understand that over the past decade, we have inflation and debased the currency, whatever you could argue 7, 8, 9, 10% a year. Yet you're signing up to put all your money to earn 4% a year. you are agreeing to lose the difference between those two because you don't want the responsibility to take risk and take control and learn and have conviction and all that because you just want to focus on other things. And I'm not saying that's wrong. And there's a place for that, especially if you're older and you'll give up yield and you'll give up the risk to, you know, peter out and kind of spend all your money over time. But for the younger people, the people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I kind of wonder how can we get them to assume that responsibility more. Financial Twitter and Substacks and YouTube and all that is making it easier, but nothing's changed on TV. There's still this depressing vibe of the economy, and that like everything's always in trouble, which just makes it even more pressure on these people to not want to make decisions on their own because they feel like they don't understand. And I just think these are powerful conversations to have. I'm not sure I've you know figured out a way to best communicate to people. But by the end of this specific conversation I'm talking about, um, I kind of had them understanding why Bitcoin is a preservation of your monetary energy and how over time it's proved that. And with, volatility is going to come with global adoption, right? We kind of had that trajectory. And by the end of it, this guy who was so afraid of risk to the point where he's almost all in bonds was like, I got to buy like 2 or 3 Bitcoin. And I was like, all right, relax. Like, read some stuff, you know, buy a book, watch some podcasts, ease your way in, because if you're a guy who's so used to non-volatile living, this is going to introduce too much too soon to you, and you are going to get scared out. And this is a good example of the people that come in and leave and have the volatility of Bitcoin is they maybe go too fast too soon. They're not ready for it. Markets hit them in the face. Markets hit your pain point, and they make bad decisions along the way. But if you just creep in, you get off zero, you start learning more, you start understanding, you start being able to handle a little bit more volatility along the way, it opens you up to a whole brand new way of thinking. I think this is why Bitcoin is philosophically speaking, it's one of the ways that can break people's mind open to abundance rather than always focusing on scarcity. Have a good day.